friends, welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Rob, and this week I want to feature one of my, it's just a more recent build restoration. This is a 60 El Camino by SMP, but there's some information that I found quite interesting about El Caminos and how they came about and what they were. So a lot of people think they're the first, but they're not the first of its kind. But it did start with Chevrolet, though, which was kind of interesting when I was reading about sport trucks and decorated and trucks. And it really all goes back to the Cameo for 1955, which beautiful truck, but they took their standard truck and they gave it a two-tone paint job and V8 engine and fancy bed sides made out of fiberglass on the tailgate, so it gave it dressed up the normal bed, but it was still metal inner panels with a wood floor for the Cameo. And while it was a beautiful truck and it didn't sell all that great, didn't take off very well. And so the Cameo for 55, and then they did the Cameo for 56, 57, and 58. And so while those were going on, Ford took notice and they decided that they were going to do a truck also, some sort of a truck, but they came out with a Ranchero for 57 and they built it on their car platform. They said, all right, we'll do it this way. And even that one for 57, Ford, nice truck, all kinds of options. You can get it in almost any way you want. Even the supercharged 312 was available in the 57 Ranchero, and two were made. But anyway, when the 57 Ranchero took off, and even its sales weren't all that great. For comparison, the Cameo, all 4 years was a little over 10,000 units, like 10,200, 10,300 units, and half of them were 55s. 55 was the best-selling year for the Cameo. It did 5,200 units. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but and then 56 was like 2,400. 57 was down, and 58 Cameo was only like 1,400 of them made. So the Cameo was pretty much, the writing was on the wall. It wasn't performing to GM's expectations. Although I think it was actually cheaper to make the Cameo compared to the El Camino. But the Ranchero, the 57 Ranchero only sold like 6,400 units, so it wasn't off to a great start either. But the big body El Caminos, when GM decided they were going to do this instead, they designed and developed this, and then the Cameo was gone. 58 was the last year for the Cameo, and it was pretty much replaced by the El Camino. But the El Camino was available, two-tone paint jobs. Anything that was available on the cars was available on the El Camino. 6-cylinder, the inlines, the V8, small block and big block. The 348 was available in this, and the Tri-Power was available in this. And I thought about actually, cutting the hood open and putting a motor in this one, but I left this one alone as far as the restoration went. But one of the interesting facts about the El Camino is, believe it or not, 59, the El Camino, that was the first steel bed floor for a pickup truck for Chevrolet. I didn't realize that at first, but that's an interesting fact. All the 59 full-size trucks were wood floors. So the 59 El Camino was the first of the metal bed floors. And so that's another interesting fact when it comes to the El Caminos. And the 59 El Camino outsold Ford in its first year. There was 22,000 units sold, which I would think, looking at how the other trucks sold, you would think that this did really well. And I thought that was pretty good looking at the numbers. And for comparison, the 59 Ford Ranchero did 14,000 something. But what I thought was interesting was for 1960, the numbers flopped. I don't know if this one being a little bit more subtle compared to the 59, it didn't sell as well, or pricing, but they flopped. It was literally 14 something thousand 60 El Caminos to Ford's 21,000 rancheros. And for whatever reason, GM axed the El Camino. So the big body El Caminos, they were only available in 59 and 60, and then there was a gap from 61 to 63. There were no El Caminos, and then 64, if you follow El Caminos, they came back on the midsize platform, the A bodies, and eventually became the G bodies. And then they just after that they just haven't been available. Although many concepts and people have dreamt about them and wanted to see them come back. And Holden sold El Camino type vehicles, but they called them a Ute, and there was a possibility of one of those coming as a Pontiac before Pontiac got axed in very early 2010, late 2009. But that's kind of enough about the story of El Camino. But it's quite interesting, and I like the trucks, even though it's really not a muscle truck. But I got this one, and it's funny, you know, like even the way this one came to me. My good friend Scotty here in the Arizona area, he's down in Tucson. Every now and then we talk about different model kits, and you know, we like a lot of the vintage stuff, and we buy and trade and talk projects, and we always talk about miscellaneous ones. What you looking for, or what do you want to build? You know, just different ones. And I told him I'd like to find one of these SMP 60 El Caminos. And he goes, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got a few. You'd be interested in one?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So he hooked me up with this one. Didn't look like this, of course. I got pictures of what I got, and he said, "It's really not bad." He goes, "They put every piece of trim on the car, so it had holes all over the place." And I'll patch in some photos here so you can see, what I got. Really wasn't painted, but all the holes were drilled in the hood, the spotlights, the mirrors, all the holes around here. I think if I have to count it, I think it was like 14 holes in the body, but all the emblems were intact. Nothing was destroyed. And he hooked me up, and I was really pleased. It had everything I needed. I did have to get the chrome redone. I had Chrome Tech Bob do it. He's retired now, but he's done my chroming for years. So I bring him up a lot, but I've got piles of restoration projects where the chrome has been done, and he's done them and I've stripped them and collected parts. So I've got a ton of restoration projects that are in that category where I've got everything, and the chrome's been redone. I just need to build them. And I had him do both bumpers. I even had him do the original hubcaps, but Scotty had one joking request. He requested that I do it in Honduras Maroon, which is not a 60 color. It's technically came out in 61, 62, so it would not be correct on a 60 El Camino. And I had one other small issue with this one that made me go with the direction I went with on this build. Since I had all the bodywork to do and fill in all the holes, but I wanted to do it stock, and I had the white wall tires and the stock hubcaps, but I wanted to use the bed cover because this bed cover, obviously it covered everything, but there was a lot of stuff that was glued into the bed on this particular model, and it was all the stuff that came in the kit. The toolbox, gas can, there was a bunch of stuff that, so the bed floor has a ton of glue marks, and that was going to require a lot of body work and a lot of work to fix all of that. And I even had an extra bed floor from a 59 El Camino that I can splice in and do that. But since we were talking about Honduras Maroon and I was entertaining that, I decided, how about I build this as kind of a day two car? Something that it was a nice truck, maybe a 10-year-old truck at the time, and build it like that. So I decided I'll do it like a muscle era car. Daydreaming about there's a 348 tri-power in there, or maybe even a 409 transplanted into it, and put the Kragers on it. So I put the big Kragers on it, and I didn't really lower it down, but I put the Kragers on it, and just pretty much stock on the other side, but freshened it up. You can see the screws for the screw bottom chassis there, and I can get away with putting the bed cover, tonneau cover on it as hiding the contents of the bed. Although I don't know the full history on tonneau covers or canvas bed covers like this. I think they were out by then, but I'm not 100% sure. Definitely not a factory option. But if you know, chime in. I'd like to hear that. I know the fiberglass hard ones didn't really come out until the late 70s. So I decided I was going to build this as a car that would appear in the late 60s, mid 60s, late 60s, basically a 10-year-old car. And so I did it in Honduras maroon, which I had scale finishes paint. I already had the paint, so it's kind of ironic that he would pick that color. And then I did the interior in black and the tonneau cover and just detailed it up and dressed it up pretty nicely. This kit has no engine, so there's no engine in there. And like I said, I kind of contemplating on whether or not I would take the hood off and cut it open and maybe put in a Revell motor or whatnot, but they're just a little bit different scales. And I had a couple of the Revell Impalas, but I was close to doing that, but I decided, I did all the body work. I really didn't feel like cutting the hood off, and I was leave this pretty much the way it is. So I built it this way, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. I'm still got to build the 59, and I'm tempted to do it that way. That way I have both of the big body El Caminos. But I figured this week I would show you this restoration, and stick around to the very end here. I'll patch in some photos of the build in progress from filling in all the holes and primer, which there's not a whole lot of putty on this one. I actually used plastic. I drilled the holes round and put in styrene and a little bit of super glue. So there's it's more super glue than putty as far as filling the holes on this one and paint and primer, but that's just how I did it. And all the rest of this is bare metal foil and foil on the emblems here that I very carefully trimmed with my razor blade and pulled it out. But really pleased and really happy with this one, and so I figured I would show you this one, do a little bit something different, do a very early 60s GM and a truck. I haven't done one before, and I actually don't think I have another built El Camino in my stash, or very, very few trucks. But thank you for watching and subscribing and tuning in, and I'll see you next Saturday. So you guys, you have a wonderful day.